If you've been struggling with registering a school with Yoga Alliance and feeling like, what's wrong with me? We want to tell you today there's nothing wrong with you. I want to introduce myself. I'm Aruna. This is Claire. And we have registered over a dozen schools with Yoga Alliance. And we recently registered some schools under the elevated Yoga Alliance standards. And we want to share with you some of the mistakes that we made so that you don't have to make them. And we also want to let you know that you can get more help if you want more help with your registered yoga school. So here are three of the tips we want to share, the mistakes we made when we registered under the elevated standards for the first time. And the first one is about using the guidebook and the checklist on Yoga Alliance.
Yeah, you can find this right here on their website. There is a process to follow. There is a guidebook that indicates every step of the way. The frustrating part is that the guidebook is 57 pages long. So we found that quite frustrating, and we did find it frustrating that once we followed that guidebook, like we went through that thing with a fine-tooth comb, we went over and over it, and when it came time to actually submit our application, we did find that they weren't quite compatible. Not because what we had done was wrong, not because the guidebook was wrong, but just what was outlined was not how we interpreted it, and the system wouldn't take the application. So we really encourage you to start here, look at the guidebook, look at the checklist. This is important. Before you even begin your application, make sure you meet everything on that checklist.
Because to get your application into Yoga Alliance, you used to be able to just submit a syllabus and then work on your manual later, but now you need to upload your manual with your application. So you have to get all your ducks in a row, as they say, to even apply for the training. So this page of the checklist, we had printed it out. We had made all the preps, prepared everything for our application. So step number one is use the guidebook. Step number two, or tip number two that we're going to talk about, is we had a really frustrating time with this one, didn't we, Claire, with the
So frustrating.
core competencies.
Again, not outlined as they would like it in the guidebook. So very serious miscommunication. We spent a lot of time dividing our 200-hour training program into the 4 educational categories. And you can see that there's topics within the educational categories. We thought there were suggestions. We didn't realize that you have to target and have an example of what you are teaching and how you are teaching every single one of those 48 core competencies.
So I would say that, our biggest tips around the core competencies is if you're doing it, use a spreadsheet. Use a spreadsheet because the way we set up our spreadsheet is we have all the Yoga Alliance requirements. So how long in each category, it's going to tell you this in the guidebook, how much time you spend in each category, your learning objectives, how that module will be delivered and assessed. So you're going to have a column for each of those. And then on the rows, you're going to have a row for each one of these bullet points. And that's what we didn't know. We just had 4 categories and we were coming up to 75 and we were just having descriptions. We didn't realize they had each one of these bullet points is a category. And so there's 48 of them. So you're going to need 48 rows going down and then your rows going across describing your training. And I think the big thing about using a spreadsheet is that at that point, then the spreadsheet does the math for you, because you can't be manually, trying to add up 75, 30 hours of yoga humanities, 50 hours of professional essentials. You can't be doing that in your head. It's best to use a spreadsheet. So when it comes to the core competencies, you need a minimum of 30 minutes in each of these bullet points. So 30 minutes in each of the bullet points. There's 48 bullet points. So obviously you're going to need more than 30 minutes in some of them.
Stories, yes.
Yeah. And you're going to use a spreadsheet so that the spreadsheet can do the math for you.
Yeah.
So that is our second tip. And our third tip is about getting help.
Yes. So much help. You will absolutely need help. The system is figure outable. The system is just intensive. And as a yoga teacher, this is not really in my wheelhouse until we started making it our wheelhouse. It's become a separate business for us. So biggest piece of advice we can give you is call Yoga Alliance. If you are unsure, give them a call. They, in my mind, have a complicated process. It might be a good process, but overall it is, a little bit complicated, but they're willing to help and they're willing to work with you. So go ahead and give them a call. Their number's right there on the website.
Yeah. And they're a lot faster when you call them versus emailing can take a while. They say they'll get back to you quickly, but in our experience, it's taken sometimes a week to get an answer. Whereas if you just pick up the phone and call them, you're going to get your answer immediately. There are some resources on the website. As we mentioned, the guidebook is your number one. Then there's some little glitches on the website. Like here it says, credentialing process and curriculum development workshop. And we thought, oh, that sounds great. You click that workshop and it takes you back to the page that you're already on.
These are the small little glitches that really add up. They're just tiny little glitches, but I promise you, there are hundreds of them when working with Yoga Alliance. They're trying to make more prepared teachers and trainers. Their intention is good. Their system might be good, but they have admitted to us that it's glitchy. Their IT can't quite keep up with their ideas. And so it does become incredibly frustrating. So call for help or work with us. You have that option as well. We have become experts at the Yoga Alliance school application process, and we definitely do help experienced yoga teachers get their schools registered.
Mm-hmm. I think the main thing I would say to someone is when you're going into this, it's going to be a month-long process if you have your manuals and stuff written. If you don't have your manuals written, it took us over 2 years to write our manual that we license out. So, depending on how much time you have to devote to writing a manual, it's going to take a lot longer. But if you have your manuals written to go over all the checklists and everything, I would say it's going to be at least a month, possibly 2 months. And then once you get your application submitted, Yoga Alliance is saying 6 to 8 weeks. We've had some schools get approved quicker, and some schools take up to 10 weeks and to get approved. And Claire, do you want to remember that story of the 2 schools we uploaded at the same time?
Yes, so this is another interesting feature with Yoga Alliance. So we submitted an application for 2 different schools, the exact same application for 2 different schools. And once you submit your application and your syllabus and your manual, it goes into a credentialing committee. So somebody reviews that on the Yoga Alliance credentialing team and basically looks at your material and decides whether or not it meets their criteria. So the first school we had approved with no changes, which we were surprised at because we've gone through this process in the past and there is lots of back and forth. So do be prepared for that. But because we're becoming experts, we were pretty pleased there was no changes. But the second application that we approved that was exact same as the first came back with a few minor changes. So when you have an individual that is reviewing this information that you submit, it becomes subjective. And you have to be really careful with that. So we were just surprised with that. It's subjective how they determine what gets approved and what requires changes. But because we've got an approved syllabus curriculum, we can pass it through a lot quicker now. But it was interesting.
That was funny. That was funny that week. So anyways, our goal with this channel is to give you tips for experienced yoga teachers to start a yoga teacher training. So subscribe to the channel so that you'll get tips related to where you're at on your yoga teacher journey, which would be becoming a trainer. That's who we're helping at Ambassador Yoga. And we'll see you in the next video.